Police used pepper spray on Occupy protesters in Admiralty. New questions are raised about Leung Chun-ying's deal with UGL. Argentina football team treats fans at Hong Kong Stadium. Good evening. We have the latest Occupy movement update for you. Police dressed in riot gear have just pepper sprayed protesters on Lung Wu Road in Admiralty. It all started at around 9 p.m. when protesters rushed out onto Lung Wu Road, obstructing traffic in the tunnel. That's when riot police holding shields and batons tried to stop them from advancing. Officers held up a red flag that warned them not to cross police cordons, or else the police would use force. Sources at the scene told us that the demonstrators, who were originally outside the chief executive's office, began moving barricades out onto Lung Wu Road, blocking its westbound lane. Then the eastbound lane was blocked as well. The Federation of Students claimed that's when the police began using pepper spray. Officers manning the westbound lane retreated back to ground level to the chief executive's office. Those on the eastbound lane later did the same. All of Lung Wu Road is now closed. We've been told that speakers on stage rallying the protesters were the ones who encouraged the demonstrators to block Lung Wu Road. Some main roads reopened today and barricades were taken down by police. Owen Feng has that story.
Early this morning, police began removing some of the obstacles on Yiwo Street in Causeway Bay. Protesters put up no resistance as police cleared out the barricades on the westbound carriageway of the road, allowing vehicles heading towards Central to go through. Protesters were allowed to stay on the eastbound lanes of the road. Later in the morning, hundreds of police officers fanned out around Queensway and Admiralty, removing metal barriers and blockades set up by Occupy protesters. Some officers used chainsaws to dismantle bamboo scaffolding built by protesters last night. Plastic cords binding metal barriers together were cut with knives or pliers. A group of protesters remained outside the Lippo Centre as obstacles on the road were being removed. Officers formed a human chain along the pavement, preventing protesters from entering Queensway. Chief Superintendent Steve Hui said the police had to remove the obstacles as protesters had reinforced the blockades with dangerous articles while refusing to cooperate after numerous appeals.
If anyone tries to replace or reinforce the obstacles again, police will not tolerate and take decisive enforcement actions to stop such illegal acts.
Some protesters, however, expressed reluctance to leave Queensway.
We are also part of Hong Kong, and we are also affected. But we are here because we feel that we have long been disempowered. This is our only bargaining power to push us, the government, in a positive manner to talk to us. I don't think we should give this up easily as a bargaining power and not as a disruptive force.
By noon, the police had cleared all the obstructions under the bridge outside the Bank of China Tower. Traffic resumed on both the east and westbound lanes on Queensway shortly after. A section of Chater Road, Murray Road and Garden Road have also been reopened. Almost all tram services have resumed, except for that section between Percival Street and Victoria Park. 83 bus routes that run along Queensway have also returned to normal operations. Owen Fung, TVB News.
The weekly Executive Council meeting was again held at Government House this morning. This as protesters are still occupying passageways leading to the Chief Executive's office at Tamar. Meanwhile, more residents and transportation workers affected by the civil disobedience campaign have called for an end to the Occupy movement. Stephanie Cho reports.
Top government officials and non-official EXCO members drove up to the chief executive's official residence on Upper Albert Road. It's the second week in a row that EXCO members met at Government House. Occupiers are still blocking off the area on Lung Wu Road outside the CE's office. This morning, some Central and Western District residents, accompanied by district councillors, went to the area to try to persuade the protesters to leave. A resident gave sweets to the protesters and wished them sweet blessings. An 88-year-old man knelt down to give a petition letter to student leaders there, saying he supports their cause, but their action is badly affecting the public's lives. The Secretary General of the Federation of Students, Alex Chow, and others also immediately knelt down with a senior citizen to show their respect. Chow said everyone there wanted Hong Kong to be a better place. Later in the afternoon, the Hong Kong Tramway Workers Union criticized the occupiers for disrupting tram services, causing drivers to miss out on possible overtime pay. The union stressed that while it doesn't object to the fight for democracy, it cannot see an end to the Occupy movement. A freight workers' union said in an open letter that while industry representatives have in the past blocked roads to press their demands, they retreated at an appropriate time. The union hopes that occupiers will free up the roads by Wednesday. Also, 8 tour bus and public bus organizations issued a statement saying they will seek compensation from Occupy advocates. The groups called on the police to disperse the protesters. Stephanie Choi, TVB News.
The first meeting for the current Legislative Council session and Thursday's question and answer session with the Chief Executive will go ahead as planned. That's according to LegCo President Zhang Yuxing. Given the presence of demonstrators in the area, government officials will need to use alternative means to get to the LegCo complex to attend tomorrow's meeting. Zhang said for LegCo members and the officials, leaving the complex will be trickier than getting there because they will have no legal protection then. He added that the question and answer session with the Chief Executive should go according to schedule at LegCo on Thursday. And it remains to be seen whether the CE can access the complex in his own vehicle. Meanwhile, more questions were raised about Chief Executive Leung Chun-ying's final days as chairman of the Asia-Pacific Operations of Property Services Company, DTZ, in 2011. Australian media unveiled today that DTZ had rejected a higher bidder in favor of an acquisition deal with UGL, the firm that signed a confidential $50 million contract with Leung around the same time. Diane To has the story.
Part of Leung Chun-ying's deal with UGL was for him to support the firm's acquisition of the DTZ Group, of which Leung was a board member back in 2011. UGL eventually acquired DTZ for £77.5 million. Today, a Sydney-based newspaper reported that at the time Leung signed the confidential deal with UGL, there was a rival bidder for DTZ who offered nearly £100 million more. The rival confidential bidder, later revealed to be state-owned Tianjin Innovation Financial Investment Company, was rejected by the DTZ board of directors, which included Leung. The Sydney Morning Herald cited 2 anonymous bankers who worked on the deal as saying they felt the Tianjin offer was better. One of them was quoted as saying it was very frustrating at the time. A UGL spokesman told the media that the company had no first-hand knowledge of any higher offer, saying it signed the commercial agreement with Leung to stop him from poaching staff or competing with DTZ. This comes after another media report last week made public that Leung had signed the £4 million deal with UGL in 2011, just days after he announced he was running for the top job in Hong Kong. The deal asked Leung to also act as a referee and advisor from time to time, although UGL has said it never asked for any services while Leung was in office as CE. But Leung was paid the money while in public office, and these payments were not declared. The Department of Justice has delegated the Director of Public Prosecution to oversee an ICAC file into the case, while some lawmakers also want to invoke special LegCo powers to call for an investigation. Federal authorities in Australia have also been asked to look into the case. Diane To, TVB News.
After a lengthy public absence, North Korean leader Kim Jong-un has resurfaced again. North Korean state media broadcast images of their leader, thereby ending global speculation that he was seriously ill. The still images showed Kim smiling broadly and supporting himself